here. And so I try and make it as original as possible. And yes, I did. I just made it original because here we
Mhm.
are, it's recording, and I didn't have to do any intros. Look at me go. Um,
Mhm.
so good evening, good afternoon, wherever
Hi.
you are. Hi, everybody. We got Lori with us again tonight, and
Happy day.
happy Valentine's Day. Tonight, and I'm not wearing anything Valentine-y. I don't know why. I just had
Mhm.
one of those lazy days. We had a nice ice storm, which is I don't know. It was not very nice. My work got canceled today, so I just got to laze around and do nothing today. Yay.
I
We're
stayed in my
done.
pajamas all day, and then I
I
realized that I had this video to do, so I
oh
changed like a half an hour ago.
oh good for you. I brushed my
Mhm.
hair half an hour ago, so
I did too,
I did
and I
I
put
did
my
do
earrings
some
in.
I did do some work on your website, a tiny little change on your website, and I'll explain that to you. So, for those of you who know about Lori's website, you're going to notice a tiny little change when you come into the uh, where the um, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Where the coupon section is, or the
Mm.
gift cards. So, when you come onto the gift card section, please, when you leave a message, just book your appointment or ask to book appointments or say you're buying this gift card for an event or whatnot. And it just makes it a little easier for you guys to sort things out.
Mhm.
Hopefully that solves a huge amount of problems because apparently people are buying gift cards and just not saying anything. They're like waiting for
Mhm.
you to respond. So
Yeah.
that's what the message part is for. You have to message and you have to say, I bought this gift card for
Mhm.
a reading. I need to book an appointment. Boom.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Done.
It's very straightforward and we try. We try so
But
hard to
we're
make it as straightforward as possible.
and we're learning too because it's the first time this has happened, right? So
Yes.
good thing it's happened,
Yes.
so now we can change it, right? She was thought
Exactly.
she had bought it. She thought when she had bought it, she was booking an appointment right away, and she was just waiting for someone to get back to her. So,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. So I just changed the wording. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just changed the wording to
Mm,
give people a little bit more of an idea of how to do it. And make sure that when you pay for your gift card, you save a copy, either print it or save a
mm,
copy, screenshot it, something for your own records. Anyway,
mm.
that's the
Yeah.
housekeeping for that. What else? Yes, we're going to talk about pets. I
Mhm,
don't have any pets. I have other people's pets.
mhm,
And when I go outside, I have the deer that look in the window. Those are my pets. Those are my people. I love these little people. I had an experience in West Virginia where I had communication with a rattlesnake and a deer and the birds that were just above the trees watching me. And
mm,
so, so when we say, we love our pets, we love them so much. We have them in our weddings.
mhm.
I tried to research how much do we spend on our pets, and I
So
was getting, I was getting answers. Oh,
this is my
hello.
pet, but if I don't show you now,
Oh,
she's not going to come on.
oh,
So this is
hello,
my
sweet
pet.
thing. Hello,
Yeah,
sweet thing. Oh, she's like,
this is
yeah, not looking at me.
yeah, yeah. So that's Pixel.
Oh, I tried to look for how much do individuals spend. It could be $40 to $800 in a month.
Hmm.
Some
Hmm.
people spend $40 to $4,000 in a year. So I thought, well, how
Hmm.
much do we spend annually as a country? And it's well over $6.5 billion that we
Hmm.
spend on our pets, and that's food and toys and vet bills and all this stuff. Uh, we if we see an animal in crisis, we stop and we'll help that animal. We'll fork out the money to help that animal. Um, and then because there's an animal in crisis, how often how often do you come across an animal that is in crisis? I never have. I always see healthy, vibrant animals. And so
I have.
all I do is I'm like, hey, I'll just go buy you a treat because I love you so much. And
Mm,
so that's my part of it. I have never once come across an animal that was in need of immediate assistance or anything like that. And then there's people that come across them all the time.
I
Like I
have
said,
some stories for you about
oh,
animals and taking
it,
care of them and them finding me and so on. And yeah, I've done that. I've had an owl in crisis. Some my neighbor ran over the owl, ran over its paws or
mhm.
talons, and it couldn't move. And when the Hope for Wildlife came, poor thing was limping, and she ran over it again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she was trying to get out, and she wasn't paying attention. So it happens.
Yikes.
Yeah, the bird was
Um,
perfectly okay, but
I've
yeah.
never have I met anybody that has had an animal in their wedding. I don't think so.
Mm.
Um, Other
Um,
people's pets are
mm,
attracted to me.
mhm,
I'll give you an example. My friend that I'm staying with here, they have three cats and a dog. And the
mm,
dog knows he knows to keep his distance. Once in a while, he'll come running to me and he'll jump. But I want to teach him not to jump on me. And another thing I'm trying to teach him is please don't get attached to me because I don't know how long I'm staying here. And so I'll
mhm,
hold him down on the back of the neck and just say, down. And he understands that. The cats for the longest time were terrified of me, but just in the past, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks, I've noticed that they are able to let me touch the top of their head. One cat, I'm
mm,
able to. What I do is I touch her with, like, I'll touch her like this. So here's her head, and I'll touch her with the back of my hand, but I won't get in there and scratch her ears or anything. I'll just touch her between the ears. And then the other one, this was, gosh, this was 2 nights ago, and it was dark in the kitchen, and she's sitting on the kitchen table. I know a lot of people get the heebie-jeebies when they hear that. But she's sitting on the kitchen table, and I went to walk by her, and I stopped and I said hi, and she's just staring at me like she's solid black, giant gold eyes, and I went to reach out, and she backed away. So I just kind of put my head a little closer to her, and then I'm staring in her eyes, and I gently blew in her face, very, very
mm,
gently. You know what she did? She just kind of smelled my breath and then
mhm,
turned her back to me. And at first I thought, huh, what does that mean? What does that mean?
mhm.
She turned her back to me. She wasn't rejecting me. She was
No,
like,
she
all right,
just
I
was.
trust you. I trust
Yeah,
you.
I trust you now. I don't want to smell your breath anymore. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yes,
We're
I
good
know who
now.
you are.
Bye.
I trust you. And when a cat turns their back like that, you're a member of the family. They
Hmm.
don't need to get to know you anymore. You're already in. So
Right.
that made me feel pretty good. A lot of people
Hmm.
like, oh, the cat doesn't like me. No. And so that's the kind of
Yeah.
communication that I'm fascinated with that. Um,
Mm.
like when you
That-
see other animals and they just instantly they instantly know, but when it comes to humans, we got to work for it.
mm. It's funny because we do some humans have to work for it, but I have that really connection with animals. And I always giggle when people say I'm an animal lover. And when they say that, they don't like cats. More people like dogs than they like cats. Um, but you can't be an animal lover if you don't like cats or if there's something, right? You can love, you can say, I love dogs, not a fan of cats. But when you say, I love all animals, okay. So what does that entail? Like, there's no animal on the planet that, aside like a shark, is even afraid of us and they bite
Mhm.
us or they because we're in their territory and they're afraid. And if you look at people in the shark cages underneath the water, and that's aggravating them. Like, yeah, they're angry and they're
Yes.
mad. And they're like, what is this? Like they're not, so the only animal I could think of that there's where they're only like they're we're prey to them is a polar bear.
That's
So,
true. That's so true.
right, that's the only animal in dinosaurs. Like I've seen alligators. Alligators are don't bite unless provoked as well. Some of them are they don't have peripheral, so they can't see you unless they turn their head. But just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so most of the time, it's either a fear or curiosity. What we forget about animals is that they have been here far longer than us, far longer than us,
Yes. Yes.
like millions of years before we were here, or maybe we were here already and we're living our second reprieve, and
Mm-hmm.
they're still around. So I get it. Like I've seen people like try to rescue deer. Deer's been around a long time, so they know how to survive the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But anyway, I have my son. He's 10. He'll be 11 next month, and he's terrified of dogs. So
Mm-hmm.
he has a huge connection with cats, and it's really interesting because he's had cats growing up, but he never really ever had his own cat. So Pixel is now his own cat. Um, but for dogs, he's always been terrified because of the human attached to the dog, not necessarily the dog itself.
Mm.
But when a
Yes.
dog comes to you and starts smelling on you and he cowers like this, every single experience he's ever had with that and the dog jumping on them is the human has said, don't be afraid, they smell fear. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's telling him he's doing something wrong. So rather
Yes.
than saying back away to the dog, not saying the dog is right or wrong, they're just saying, like, oh, my dog's not going to hurt you. They're not going to hurt you. They can smell fear. So, it's your fault for being
It's
afraid.
obviously, yes. Yes.
Right.
It's never the
So
dog's fault.
it's never, and that has been ongoing for him. So he just cowers when he sees a dog. And the smaller the dog, the more afraid he is.
Mm.
It's not the big
Yes.
dog, it's the small
Yes.
ones.
Yes.
But yeah, usually the dog will come to me first and get permission. And then
Mm-hmm.
he'll see me pet the dog, and then he'll say, can I pet the dog? And yes. So we saw a dog sticking its head out the window, the car when we were going to Superstore,
Yeah.
Wednesday night. And the dog was like, I was like, look at this little dog. And so he was like cowered back, and the dog was like, who are you?
Yeah.
I don't know who you are. And he was like, so I said, can I pet him? And he goes, yeah, I pet his head. And he wanted Eli to pet him. And so he did. And it was like a good experience. So he's getting better and better. But that's a big pet peeve for us, and it's been part of his trauma because he has
Mhm.
been bitten by dogs. He's been bitten by several dogs in his 10 years on this planet this time around. He's been bitten by several, and he's gotten stitches from dogs, big dogs and small
Really?
dogs. Yep. Yep.
Wow.
So he got bit when he was 3, um, and the owner blamed him for playing with the dog when the dog didn't want him to play. And I'm like, he's 3 years old, and the dog, it was a golden retriever, believe it or not, and it bit him, and he had to get stitches. He got like 5 stitches, because he drew blood. And he started crying, and that set the dog off a little
Oh,
bit. And it's just
yeah.
it's so we've had experiences like that. And um sometimes dogs dogs have more rights than humans sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
In my line of business, I've seen people, I get it. And I 100% love dogs myself. I've had beagles. Beagles are my favorite dog. That's why I love Kara's dogs. And she said she had
Mm.
beagles. Oh my God.
Yeah. I was really hoping
I
she'd come on
love them.
and
They're so happy, but
what
they
was
get
that?
away.
Did you hear something? Did you hear
Yeah,
something? It was a loud screech.
that's my son.
Oh, okay.
He's playing a zombie game downstairs.
Oh, okay. It was pretty loud. Like my ears are ringing.
Maybe that wasn't him. I just heard him say "rawr, rawr, rawr," like that. So Or it could be the wind outside, the high
No,
pitch wind.
it was a loud like needle across the record screech.
Mm.
I don't know.
I
Maybe
don't know.
maybe we got some pets creeping in there into
I
our
think we do
can
have a couple of them. Somebody's wanting to talk. I think it might have
um
been actually Kara's dog because she recently had a dog that crossed the Rainbow Bridge,
mhm, yeah.
and I think that's who that is. But we wanted to talk today about pets and love because it's Valentine's Day and it's a day for
Yes.
love.
Yes.
And everybody out there is talking about love. What I love about Valentine's Day is that I always look at it as a day to show my love to people that I may not or I might forget to show to every day. So, like my friends and my besties and all that kind of stuff. When, I just want to tell them I love them and show my heart. And it's not just about because I'm single, and I'm cool with that. So
Mhm.
I don't associate Valentine's Day necessarily with that. And I know people will go, yeah, you're saying that because you're single, but I've always been that way.
Mhm.
I don't post pictures of the beautiful Valentine's Day presents I got or
Yeah, no.
whatever because it's if that's the only thing you're going to show me throughout the year is
Mhm.
that one day, then maybe there's something that I can do to change that. I don't.
Mhm.
So pets are like unconditional love. And I want to talk about the love of, and it's not just the love that we have for our pets, it's the love, like they're family members. I get that. We cater to them, like honestly, we clean up after them, we feed them.
Yes.
They could survive on their own. They really could.
And
Work
there's
them out,
people that treat their pets better than
and
their
they treat their
parents, their
humans.
elderly parents. The elderly
Yeah.
parents, no, we're just going to throw you in a home, but my dog is going to be with me forever.
And I've seen that. Like I've seen them treat animals or their dogs better than they treat their humans. And
Yes.
um, whether that's right, and I get it. I get it. Dogs don't talk back or cats don't talk back to you. They give you nothing but love. It's so unconditional. Um, you know, that's what that person is craving is that love. And if they're getting it from something that's not going to talk back to them, something
Yes.
that's going to
Yeah,
take care of them, you
that
know,
makes total sense. Yeah.
right? So when you walk away from that, it's like you've had so much pain attached to relationships in the past that
Hmm.
you don't like. And I often struggled with that when people say, oh, I love them more than I love my human.
Hmm.
And it's because that dog doesn't talk back or that cat doesn't talk back or that pet. And we have them for such a small period of time in our life
Hmm.
that, you know, but what we need to understand is that we've had these pets before.
Hmm.
We've
Yes.
had them.
Yes. Was it you that told me? No, it was somebody else. And I think you told me later on. My cousin had two dogs, a German Shepherd and a short-haired Husky.
Hmm.
And I was told that the Husky, even though we weren't as close, like the German Shepherds, oh my gosh, he's my BFF. He really is. He's my BFF. And but the Husky who died, oh gosh, what was it? I'm gonna say almost 2 years ago she passed away. Was it 2 years? I think so. We were not as close, but somebody told me that she follows me through all my lifetimes. She's
Hmm.
there, and every single lifetime, it's very difficult because she's always the first one to go, and I'm
Hmm.
always the last one saying, "I want to help you. I want to save you." And I'm when she ended up with this very aggressive brain tumor, like just
Hmm.
above her eye. It was so aggressive that I noticed her eye was red first thing in the morning. And then
Hmm.
3 days later, the tumor just was like triple the size and they had to put her down. But before she went to the vet, I'm on the floor and I'm trying to, um, I'm putting water on my fingers and trying to so hard to get her to lick the water off of my fingers. And she just wasn't doing it. And
She
then
was like
after,
this.
yeah, Yeah, and I tried so hard.
Mhm.
She wanted to. She was very grateful that I was helping her. But after she passed away, I remembered this other woman saying that every lifetime I'm trying to help her, but there's
Mhm.
nothing I can do. There's
There's
nothing.
nothing. And they like the pets have same kind of contracts that we have. Like we
Hmm.
sign a contract as a human to come here, and it depends on what where you're at in your spirit. So you can choose your family. Uh, you know, I didn't get to
Hmm.
choose my siblings. My siblings chose me. So that was what I left that open or what have
Hmm.
you. So kind of like the same thing with pets, but pets or animals, they can choose how long of a life they're going to live as well. So
Hmm.
if they want to be a turtle or a tortoise, they can live to be 120 years or 150 years old.
Hmm.
And there's not a lot of animal spirits that say, I want to be on this planet for 150 years old, 150. Usually that's the don't hear me through on this one. Usually the ones that are tortoises or the ones that live really long lives, like parrots, because parrots can outlive their owners by a lot. Like they can live 100 or so years. Those are the ones that were like the mosquitoes, the ants, the bugs that have that spirit, but have to live that cycle. They have to live that
Hmm.
cycle 5, 6, 700 times,
Hmm.
right? Because then their life expectancy is very short. So those spirits are going, okay, you know what, enough. I want to be on here for a long time.
Hmm.
So that's kind of what they choose. So they choose to be this tortoise. They're with us every lifetime. Now, every time I go into a meditative state or a state where I always have a black cat that's with me every single time.
Hmm.
And this black cat spirit, when we walk through that door, she becomes a panther. So
Mm.
she becomes strong and she becomes this absolutely amazing um, creature that's like you can barely see her at night, just see her eyes.
Just the eyes.
So
Yeah.
just the eyes and absolutely beautiful. And she's one of my guides. She follows me everywhere as I go. I will be walking in my kitchen and I know it's not Pixel. I'm like, oh, geez, okay, yeah, there she is again. Um, so we have many animals that actually follow us. So that's where I want to go with this one tonight. It's about spirit animals, spirit guides, and the love that they carry for us. Every soul is attached to an animal, every one of them. Every one of us has got animals attached to us. Now, it doesn't just mean pets. There's always a connection with something. Now, you know how sometimes crows or crow, you know how crows are attached to you? Well, they're
Yes.
attached to your spirit, right? And they're
Yes.
generational. So when one of those crows passes, they would have handed down their wisdom to another crow. So that other crow may be attracted to you as well. Because they
Hmm.
remember, they're very much. So think about it like this. When so they basically are saying, okay, I can make you or I can break you. You're going to be mean to
Yeah.
me or you're going to be nasty to me, then I'm going to be nasty to you. And they
Hmm.
won't forget that. So everybody will be nasty. But if you love me, I'll love you. So it's the same thing. That same spirit will be carried through to your lifetime. Now, I've seen crows in particular. I'm going to talk about that one for a second. That I've seen them conglomerate on a deck. And there was a
Yes.
cousin of mine who had some addiction issues. One of his issues was glue, sniffing glue. And if you know that my relatives are native or indigenous, myself, and sometimes it's a little that he was a gasoline gas huffer, and he was
Hmm.
also a glue sniffer. And all through his life, he had been that way to escape some of his trauma. But he used to always talk to the crows. And it was one crow that he would talk to in particular. And we lived in public housing. We lived, in places that were not always the greatest
Hmm.
um, you know, for to live in. So he would talk to this one crow, just one crow. And I always liked him. Many, many, many years later, I had a friend of mine who I was doing some nannying for. and she was he's been her best he was her best friend for years. And he was at the end of his life, and we knew that he couldn't barely function because his brains were gone. And he would talk to the crows every day. And she said he'd go to the deck, and he didn't even have to have food in his hand. He would just go to his deck and he'd light up the smoke, and as soon as he lit that up, there'd be about 12 of them that would
Hmm.
sit there, and he would talk to them, talk normal talk to them, and then he would come back and they would fly away. And when he passed away, at his gravesite, they were mourning him, and one of them was on top of his grave crying, and there was a tear coming from that tear that and that crow, like, it was so unbelievable to see the 12 of them on there. And like
Hmm.
the one of them flew down on top of his, kind of like his grave, and his head, it was absolutely amazing. They carried that love for him all the ways through. So that was a
Hmm.
friend for him. Now he's on the other side. He's like kind of getting ready for reincarnation. And that same crow spirit is still with him. So when I connect with him, the crow actually comes right through. So, and sometimes when connecting, I'm connecting with the spirit first,
Hmm.
because the animal spirit is easier to contact. It's easier to get in touch with. So they almost gel together. So when I was talking to him, he was like, "You have to talk through my crow first." And I just thought it was so funny that that crow is still attached to him, even in death. And that crow now will come back when he comes back.
Hmm.
And so it has decided to be a crow again. They'll decide to be crows for a long, 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 long time. And then they'll
Yeah.
decide to be a horse. So they'll decide that they want to be an elephant. Like, there's different ones that they choose to be. Sometimes they'll choose to be a giraffe for
Hmm.
many lifetimes because of the gentleness of the giraffe and the fact that they get to see the world
Hmm.
that they live in. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't know if any of that makes any sense,
There's
but
there's a there's a crow that visits my dad's grave,
mhm.
and I
Your
got
dad was
there.
very connected to him.
This was and he used to sit on the front porch and watch the dynamic between all the hummingbirds. Like there'd be several, like I think he had maybe 4 or 5 hummingbird feeders up, and he'd watch because each feeder is a different family, and they're very,
Mhm.
very territorial. And he'd watch. He's like,
100%.
oh, and he's saying, oh, you're sneaking, you're gonna get in trouble. And then sure
Mhm.
enough, the dad would come out and shoo the guy. And anyway, it was his soap opera. Instead of watching
Mhm.
Coronation Street like me,
Mhm.
he was watching the hummingbird. It was his Coronation Street on the deck.
Just
But
to
I went.
watch that is so amazing.
It really is. It's so fun,
I
and
love I
and
love talking about the connection and the connection between animals and us. Sorry, go right ahead. Go ahead.
and well, I went to his grave on Father's Day,
Hmm.
and I had a huge decision that I needed to make, and so I needed his advice on this decision. And
Hmm.
so every time I go and see his grave, I always take him a Tim Hortons breakfast sandwich, and I just leave it there for him. And and usually, it's like, well, he's not going to eat it, so I might as well eat it. And there was several times where him and I did go to Tim Hortons, and
Hmm.
he, oh, you got to get this. This is such a good sandwich, but he wouldn't eat the whole thing, and then he'd give it to me. So I'm like, well, you're not
Hmm.
going to eat it, so I might as well. And like on Father's Day, this one year, I had this huge. Was it last year? Yeah, last year, a year ago.
I was just
I
gonna
said
say
I had
that was
this
last
huge.
year.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, a huge decision. And I look over, like way, way in the far corner of the graveyard, and there was this crow sitting on top of the building. And I said to my dad, "Do you know that one? Do you know this guy? Because he's gonna come and steal your sandwich if you don't eat it." Anyway,
Yeah.
so I put the sandwich down on my dad's headstone, and sure enough, that crow came along, and he's just kind of wandering around, waiting for me to do my thing and take off, just leave. And
And your dad says he gave him permission to take that because that's
and
part of
that's
the Crow family.
that's what it felt like. He was given
Hmm.
permission to take it, because I asked, "Do you know that guy?" Now, the one
Hmm.
thing, what he taught, like we lived in northern Manitoba when I was tiny, And
Hmm.
he told us that when ravens are slightly different than crows
Slightly. Yeah.
as far as family and whatnot. They're still highly, highly intelligent.
Hmm.
He said that, like, we used to go to the dump in
Hmm.
this town that we lived in northern Minnesota. We used to go to the dump, so that was our Sunday travel, our drive, our Sunday drive. So we'd go and watch the bears and the ravens at the dump. And he pointed out to us, me and my brother and my sister, he pointed out that he says, if you see, like, look at all these ravens, they're all on the ground and they're all eating, and you got one up in the wire and one way over here, and the one that's up in the wire or up here watching, that's your sentry. He's watching to
Mm.
make sure nobody's coming. And this one over here is watching this guy to make sure that this guy's doing his job. And if
Hmm.
somebody manages to get in and harm one of the ravens on the ground, this guy up in the top here will say, all right, we tried, and will attack the sentry, and then
Hmm.
the other ravens will come in and attack and kill it
Hmm.
if need be. That's their process.
And they have
But
that very much of a hierarchy as well. So it's like you have that one that's looking out, and then you have the jobs of each of the other ones that are doing that,
yes,
right?
yes,
It's
and
very interesting.
I watched that with turkey vultures. I lived in London,
Mm,
Ontario, and where my apartment was, I was on the fifth floor, and I could see the turkey vultures coming in the spring. I could see on the horizon there'd be like these little black dots, and I'm like, oh, the turkey vultures are back. They were so impressive to watch
mm,
the dynamic, and I'm watching them bring the babies in. And so there was one year, there was one huge, I don't know, there must have been about 20 of them, and straggling behind there was two, and then there was another huge, I can't remember the name of it. It's not like a murder of crows is, I'm just not
mm,
sure what it is. Anyway, there was another group of them, and then straggling behind there was two more. So what was happening was these babies from the front group, they're getting tired, and
mm,
so then this one would break away and encourage that baby, come on, we're not far, just got a little bit farther to go, and encourage that baby to keep going, keep going. And the same thing with the other group behind them. And they were always they watched every move. I'm getting chills just thinking of it. They'd
mm,
watch every move that I made.
mhm.
I'd walk outside and making eye contact with me. And you didn't dare go near these things because they're very um they're overprotective.
They
They
are.
won't eat you, but they're very overprotective. And so you didn't want to go near them.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and I never once in the 11 years that I lived in that building, never once did I get a picture of them because they're so
Mhm.
fast.
They're
Anyway,
elusive as well,
yes.
and
So
they watch. Yeah.
that brings us to a question. And
Hmm.
I know the cat, I shouldn't say this, how can I put this, the listeners that you would have and the listeners that I would have,
Hmm.
we already know the answer to this question. And so
Hmm.
I want to bring this to the people that are, like, last week we were talking about dipping your toe
Hmm.
into a situation. The question is, do animals have souls? And
Yes.
yes, absolutely, absolutely they do. Um, and I know this is a horrible example to bring up. I don't even like this example because it hurts my heart to know that these places exist, but wet
Hmm.
markets, they exist. But these are also people that don't believe that animals have souls. And so you
Mm.
have those people that are taking their dogs and their cats to these wet markets for the inevitable, I don't, and so anybody that's
Yeah.
listening, if you don't know what a wet market is,
I don't even want to
there
know what it was. I know what it is, but I
I
choosing
don't
not
want,
to believe in that.
yeah.
And yeah, the other twist to that is that, so I'm going back to our teachings as Mi'kmaq, and that is that every animal that has a soul, but their soul, um, when they're used for food. or when they're used, we use every single piece of that animal. So we thank them. We put out like a spirit plate for them. We thank them. We connect with them in their spirit. And that animal will choose to say, you know what? Okay, I would love to be part of your clan now. So that's kind of how you get the clan thing. So the only thing that I can say about that is that that animal goes, okay, this is part of the contract that I signed up for. I know it's terrible. I know, but how it makes me, I connect with that spirit and go, okay, so let's just leave now. So they
Hmm.
make their quick exit out. And
Hmm.
that's, if that makes any sense. But that's kind of the belief that we have. When we kill a moose, we use every piece of that moose, the
Hmm.
hooves, like all of it. We get what we don't use, we give back to the earth. So we use things for jewelry, ceremony, food. One moose will feed almost an entire community
Hmm.
between the moose steaks and the moose stew. And oh my goodness, like there's so much. So that moose has given, we honor it in so much weight. Like we'll give it the tobacco, we'll lay that down, thank you very much for giving your life for us. So that's kind of the way. I don't agree with it. um but I know they have a soul, but that's kind of where I go with it. And I'm like, okay, so I
Hmm.
help them to cross before they need to cross, and then they're going into their next lifetime. So they transition almost right away, an animal does, whereas a human spirit, when they cross, go between, they usually a generation. And a generation, they're saying, is about 20 years, 20 to 30 years before they come back again. So, what a
Hmm.
human or an animal, it can be, it depends on the animal itself. But
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah. Do
where I
you
look at
think?
that.
Do you think, or do you? Uh, well, no. Nobody can really say for sure. Can a human and an animal interchange souls?
No,
No.
no,
No.
it's a different spirit because when our spirit signed up to be a spirit, we put up their spirit to be a spirit in an animal, in a human form, and we're meant to show love to both, to the animals, and the animals are meant to show love to us,
Hmm.
right? So they're kind of like twin spirits and
Hmm.
guides.
Okay.
So I maybe probably didn't explain that properly, but an animal will always go back into an animal, and a human will always go back into a human.
Hmm. Okay.
Now,
That's always the
yeah,
question I had was, because
yeah,
you hear people joke about in my next lifetime I want to be a cat.
right. And I've heard that so many times, and I've had clients in the past that challenge me on that and say, no, you're wrong, because my this cat came back, and I swear to God, it's my husband. Now, and I'm like, you know what? It's likely not your husband. However, it could be the animal spirit that was attached to your husband. So
Yes.
when you look at it like that, their spirit is completely different. It's
Yes.
like they're full of almost more components than we are, and we have different components from them.
Hmm.
So, we have the ability, some of the animals do not have the ability to dream. We do.
Hmm.
So, and that's attached to the spirit. So it's interesting. And when they recycle, their spirits have been around a lot longer than ours.
Hmm.
When they decided to create human, they create, like, not created, but when we came from the stars and the planets, we were a completely different spirit. It was almost like they're moon spirits
Hmm.
and we're
Hmm.
we're star spirits.
Mm. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of explaining it. Or like they're coming. So I don't believe that they interchange, but they do stick with us. Like
Hmm.
my black cat, for example, has been with me for many lifetimes, and the panther has been with me for many lifetimes. This lifetime, she's a cat. Maybe in
Hmm.
the last lifetime, she could have taken on the spirit of an elephant,
Mm. Okay. Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
And yeah, one thing that we need to know, though, and this might be a little bit controversial. Oh my gosh, do I want to be controversial? Is that
Bring it on.
spirits, like spirit guides, or
Yes.
guides as we call them, have never been alive.
I did
They've
know
never
that.
been in body. So when we say that, and that's the big difference too, is that when we say, okay, I have this guy that's attached to me, that's a cat. It is a cat, and it is a cat spirit, but that cat spirit has never been alive in physicality that I can pet this cat.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between like animal guides and animal spirits. Okay, so the
Mm-hmm.
spirit, animal spirit, is that spirit that we take of that animal all through our life. So I say, mention a cat, that's not going to change. Your
Mm-hmm.
animal guides can change. Your animal guides will appear to you when you need them the most. So you'll see, okay, I'm seeing crows all around everywhere. What is the crow medicine? Ask the animal for the medicine that they're given to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even even rats, like
Oh,
they're
I know.
creepy, they're gross, they're disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around them, but when I'm seeing a large now seeing them doesn't trigger whatever, but it's when you can constantly see them or you see them for weeks straight. It's the time to say, what medicine do you need me to know
Mm-hmm.
about? As a rat is about being a scavenger.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's time. So that would tell you it's time to be a scavenger. And you might think that that's not the right message, but it's about like taking what you can
Mm-hmm.
because it's your time to take what you can, right?
Mm,
That's
okay.
kind of right. Um, One animal that I absolutely love that nobody looks at is a pigeon.
Mm,
Pigeons have a
mm-hmm.
life expectancy between 80 and 120 years. They literally see generations of
Mm,
people. Pigeons have so much wonderful energy.
mm-hmm.
They're amazing. They're messengers in this world. So they're the ones that are carrying the messages in this world, from this
Mm-hmm.
world and from the other world. Like the eagles will carry messages, the hawks carry messages,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but the pigeons will carry them in this lifetime. And I wouldn't have one as a pet and pick one up and kiss on it or anything like that. But when I
No.
see a bunch of pigeons around, what that's trying to tell me is that I'm resourceful. And so that now it's time for me to figure it out. That's the
Mm-hmm.
pigeon medicine. And I love watching them. I love watching them come in and I love the cooing sound of them. And I do. I really like them.
Yeah.
They're
You know,
messenger.
I think the only thing that has me taken aback with pigeons is the red eyes.
I never
The
really look at their eyes, so I didn't
Oh,
know that
the
mice
red
were red.
eyes. Their eyes just kind of creep me out. City pigeons,
Yeah,
not like not like doves or anything like that. Just those.
yeah, because they're all the same family. Doves,
Yeah,
mourning doves,
yeah.
pigeons are all the same family.
Those
And
red eyes really creep me out. I don't know why.
I can understand. They're not soul carriers, so they do have a soul, but they're not the carriers of the soul. Like there's so many different things I could tell you about animals. There are some animals that are what I would call a soul carrier. So they're the ones
Mm-hmm.
that are waiting for those souls and they'll carry those souls, with them. And people think that cats are that way. Some people do. They're
Mm-hmm.
not. Um, you know, yeah, it's so
So,
fascinating. So kind of off the topic there, but back to the same topic about them carrying love. Um,
mm-hmm.
Love is an emotion, it's a feeling, it's an action. And
Yes,
we show love very differently to our humans than we do to our pets.
yes,
Um,
yes.
Love to a pet is a pat on the head or a snuggle. I mean, my son doesn't. I don't pet his head or with him
Yeah,
or lick his face like a cat
yes.
would. Um, I communicate with them a lot, and I understand meow and I understand
Mm-hmm.
wolf. I do. And it's a very interesting language to think because they will speak back to me in their interpretive language, which I would interpret into English. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Now, now, when you say touch them on the head, so I one of my jobs, I work in the school and as a teacher's assistant, EPA, and I found that actually last year I had a contract with one pre-primary class.
Mm,
And I think after the first week of being with these kids, I found myself touching them on the top of the head,
hmm.
like just to get their attention, or just say, "Hey, you having a good day?" I'll just give them a
Hmm.
little touch on the head, like not
Yeah.
pet them like a cat, just a
How
little, "Hey."
comforting is that, right? That's so comforting. That's such an
Instead of
exchange of
doing, yeah,
energy.
instead of coming up and tap them on the shoulder, "Hey," but it's just a little touch on the head, and I thought, I don't normally do that. I don't
Mm,
I don't go around and touch people on the head. And now I'm finding that I'm doing it at the school that I'm at now. I don't have the same kids. I move around from class to class,
mm,
but I found that the one girl that I'm with the most, I want so bad to just come over and just give her hair a little tussle, but she is very much, this is my bubble and you don't touch
hmm.
me.
Hmm.
She's allowed to touch me, but I'm not allowed to touch her. And then there's another little boy who gets very angry at the tiniest little thing, not at me, but all I have to
Hmm.
do is just like ruffle his bangs a little bit,
Hmm.
and then he's fine. But I
They
find,
crave human touch.
yes, and so now the well, the dog that's here, he's a sweet dog. He is, I want to say, I don't. He's part poodle and part some. He's black anyway.
Okay.
He's a
Okay.
beautiful little thing, poodle slash whatever. Um.
Mm,
Anyway, I'm finding him, like, because I have to keep pushing him down, like not down,
mm.
like as in I'm your boss. It's not very derogatory. But because I don't want him getting too attached to me, because I don't know how long I'm going to be here, and I don't want him, mourning my absence. I don't
Hmm.
want him doing that. But once in a while, he'll come over and he'll give my foot a quick lick, just very
Hmm.
quick. And or sometimes he'll put the top of his head on one of my shins, and so uh, I'm noticing that he's doing a little bit more and more lately of
Hmm.
this action. And so Jed, my BFF, German Shepherd, um, he loves to lick my feet. I have a foot that's partially paralyzed, and so
Hmm.
I'm like, "Hey, dude, have at her." It feels so good on my foot for that massage. It feels so good. It's
Hmm.
not a weird thing. It just feels amazing because I don't get that on that foot very often. And when I ask him if he wants a hug, he'll put his head down and he'll put his head between my knees, and I have to hug him, like, just around his chest like that.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'll just stay there for like 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes, and I'll ask him, "Have you had enough?" And he'll let me know. He'll just walk away. If he wants to go outside, he'll lick my shin. He'll lick my leg
Hmm.
and say, "Hey, this is him wanting to go outside." If he wants
Hmm.
me to just pet him, he'll lick my hand. If he wants food,
Hmm.
he licks my face. And so I'm finding that this dog here starting, the only thing he does not do, he does not lick my face, because I don't want to be his food source
Hmm.
whatsoever.
Hmm.
Um, but I was getting to something. Oh boy, look at me. I just completely squirreled.
Squirrel.
Where was I going? Yeah, so that language, the language I'm finding is almost identical. There was another question I wanted to ask you. I already know the
Hmm.
answer to it,
Hmm.
but there are people out there that would not know this, and it will come to me at some point. But have you noticed the dog language is the same, licking the feet, licking
Hmm.
your, like,
Yeah,
your knee or your shin.
it's a very much a comfort level for the dog. And what I wanted to say was that cats and dogs, those are our common pets. They're all about energy. Just
Hmm.
like our all spirits all are energy, all souls are energy. And that's what they go off of. They're very good at reading energies and spirits and all that kind of stuff. So when they're licking your foot, they're liking your energy. They like the salt in your body too. And they're trying to alkaline you because they
Hmm.
notice that your body is not alkaline. So they're like, I'm going to take some of that salt away.
Oh,
So
okay.
what I was going to say was that they are healers. Animals are natural healers where and they will find another healing spirit as well. Um, when I see like an animal that, so we talked about animals in distress, they need us to help them heal them, right? So we take away that pain. They feel pain in a very different way than we do. We know
Hmm.
what pain feels like to us, but to them, it, it's not like we feel it. It's dull and
Hmm.
it's empty, right? So that's
Yes.
kind of they just know something's different in their body. Okay. So kind of where I was going with this was that um I find that the reason why we're so attached to our animals is because they heal our spirits. And so when they sit down beside us, that's the way that they show love to us. When I walk into a room, like have a story that many years ago, probably about 6 years ago, I had a client's husband reach out to me and bought, she wasn't a client at that time. He reached out to me out of the blue and bought a gift certificate. And it was in December and he wanted to give it to his wife for Christmas, but it was actually for the dog. So when I went to their house, she didn't get in touch with me for like 9 months. So September the next year, I get this call, and she's a vet already. She's already a vet, so she already knows how to take care of animals. But she said I needed an expert in. And when I rang the doorbell, all I heard was this huge dog growling and barking at me. And I open up the door, and this Rottweiler comes charging at me. And I just stood there at the bottom
Hmm.
of the stairs. And I look at this dog and
Hmm.
I'm just like, what the hell is your problem? And he literally come right to my face and his
Hmm.
face was like this close as my hand. And I'm looking at him and he's frothing
Hmm.
at the mouth. And then I go,
Hmm.
do you mind? I need to get
Hmm.
around you. And that dog goes, okay. And
Hmm.
he just went down, went beside me, and he never left my side the
Hmm.
whole entire reading. And she was like, I've never seen that before. She said, that's what my animals need. Right. And she needed, so she saw the validity in helping heal the spirit of that animal. So she wanted to know what his history was. And the fact
Hmm.
was that he had a, they have good memories and
Hmm.
he had a really bad past and a lot
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
pain from his past emotionally. The dog was depressed. And I'm finding there's animals a lot more. The ones that I read today, two of them had depression. And it's like,
Hmm.
we don't quite understand a depression in animals, but it's starting to become more prevalent. But this particular dog, I went back to her house last year in 2024, which would have been like 3 or 4 years later. And that dog remembered me. And she's like, he's still an asshole, which are
Hmm.
my favorite animals to deal with. But
Hmm.
he knew as soon as I got out of my car, I was coming. She said he stood by like this.
Hmm.
And I walked in the door and I was like, oh, hey. And he just was like, okay. And I walked right by him. And as soon as I walked by him, he started growling at the next one. And I'm like, no, no. As long as I'm here, there's
Hmm.
no growling. So
Hmm.
he was like, how do you do it? And I was like, I just tap into their spirit. And I know that there's parts of his spirit that will never be healed. So he needed me to go in there and heal pieces of him. Like I've done this to many dogs, many cats, dogs that are the biggest dogs, that are the biggest asshole of dogs. It's not them. I've had
Hmm.
dogs pee down on me and it's
Hmm.
fear, it's all those things, but know that they're all energy. So they will get off of us. So when I talked earlier about my son being afraid and they sense fear, yes, they do sense fear, but they're sensing fear because they know fear. And
Hmm.
fear is almost comforting to them. So what they're trying to do, and I try to explain it to my son, but he's 10. And I don't want him to believe he's doing anything wrong, but I also don't
Hmm.
want the animal to believe they're doing anything wrong. But when they sense the fear, they're trying to cure that fear, but they're
Hmm.
afraid to cure the
Yes.
fear,
Yeah.
right? So it's like a double-edged sword for them. So
Yes.
I just tell my son to put up a block and close your eyes and turn
Hmm.
your back. And
Yeah.
that tells them that I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So,
Here's
yeah.
okay. So shifting topics, not
Hmm.
topics, but shifting. Have you had a experience with a pet replacing themselves with another pet?
Hmm.
So my aunt, this was
Hmm.
she was telling me this way, way, way back in the late '80s. She was telling me this that she had this cat that was about 20 years old,
Hmm.
and she was not a cat person per se. And all of a sudden, he went missing.
Hmm.
And when he came home, he brought home a little friend, a
Hmm.
little a little cat that was maybe, I don't know, between 9 and 12 weeks old, I think she said. And she's like, no, I don't want another cat. Like she finally, like after 20 years or so, she finally got used to this one, and no, no more cats. When he's gone, he's
Hmm.
gone.
Of
Anyway, she ends up falling in love with this kitten because this
course
kitten
she
was
does.
not leaving. And as
Hmm.
soon as she made that visual attachment, the other cat walked away and died.
Hmm.
He just died. He's like, I'm done. I
Yep.
found you a replacement.
I've experienced this myself with the cat that I had, and the cat was perfectly okay. Like
Hmm.
nothing wrong with this cat. And she had got out one day and she brought home a kitten. And as soon as she taught that kitten how to be a cat and how it like grew up with it, taught it, then she ran away and I never seen her again.
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
was like they will find their replacement because they know the human is going to mourn them and
Hmm.
grieve them. But if they bring somebody else in your place, their place, they want to be able to pick. Most of the time, they want to pick them out, and it's the
Hmm.
energy of it. But it's a beautiful thing. It's
Hmm.
hard for us to deal with as humans because we have a very different way of thinking and feeling. What they're doing is
Yes.
they're not saying, "I'm not bringing my replacement. I'm
Yeah.
bringing somebody for you, a companion for you to love on." Because
Yes.
I appreciate the fact that you loved me so much and gave me such a fantastic life that I
Hmm.
want another animal to share that,
Hmm.
to have that love. Um, I this is controversial again about the Rainbow Bridge. I've never talked about the Rainbow Bridge. It's only been like the last 10 years. And the only reason why I talk about a rainbow bridge is because that's what we as humans go to is as they're crossing over a bridge. So I will often say the dog is in the middle of the bridge and he can't cross because we have a human spirit that can't let go and it
Okay.
holds them
Yes.
back from fulfilling, right? What I say is like is not necessarily the rainbow bridge. It's that threshold. So it's kind of like the movie All Dogs Go to Heaven, the sad,
Hmm.
sad movie All Dogs Go to Heaven. Oh my God.
I've never
It's
seen it,
that
sadly.
it's a cartoon and it will
Hmm.
kill you because it will make you cry. So if there's any
Okay.
of the viewers out there, All Dogs Go to Heaven. It's an older one. You will bawl your eyes out. It is fantastic. It's actually a wonderful portrayal of heaven for dogs and the afterlife for dogs crossing over. All dogs go to heaven. It's a beautiful movie. But it's it's hard for us to let go. It's not hard for them to let go. That's the controversy.
Yeah.
And then
Okay. Yeah.
the Rainbow Bridge is it's I guess that's what we want to call it. I always have when an animal passes, they get to a pasture. So it's almost like they're running free. And
Hmm.
then they hit something that I would call be like the invisible wall. And so when
Yes.
they run through that wall, they're in a completely different place. And that
Yes.
is where their euphoria is. And sometimes they don't completely cross. So I guess that could be the Rainbow Bridge. But I,
Now that you said that, I wonder, is their job on this existence, this plane, this earth, is
Mhm.
their job the same as ours? We are here to learn unconditional love. That's the one and only thing that we're here to learn.
Mhm.
Is their job to teach us unconditional love?
Yes. That's the
Okay.
short answer is yes. They're here to, so that's their role. And that's one of the reasons why we can't switch between human and animal spirit because they have a
Okay.
different job on this planet. Now, not every animal teaches us unconditional love,
Mm-hmm.
but they all have their own purpose. Cats, dogs, pets, like I know people who have birds, somebody have a jumping spider. It's also to teach us about grief,
Mm-hmm.
gratitude. When
Mm-hmm.
we have the animals that we eat, those are to teach us gratitude, to be thankful and loving. Now, there's overconsumption now
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
animals, of and there's waste that's taking place. If we
Yeah.
didn't have the waste that we have, like if we didn't have the overconsumption of animals like the chickens and stuff, like we were talking about the wet market or whatever, if we just consumed what we were supposed to, the world would be a much better place. It would be a much
Mm-hmm.
your place. But
Yes.
unfortunately, it's that's
We've
where we're
got
at.
those factories and whatnot that, chickens sometimes don't see the light of day. Pigs don't
I
see the light of day.
I actually was driving. This has happened to me twice, but I've been driving and I see a truck full of chickens, and I start talking to the chickens. Chickens are freaking hilarious, and they got these huge sense of humors and stuff. They know what this going to. They know
Mm-hmm.
that, and I'm going by and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to turn the tables. So I basically go through and I give them a whole bunch of energy and I just put them all to sleep.
Mm.
I just put them all to sleep. And then I'm like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? You're going to be to sleep and then you're going to come back to your next lifetime. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because it's like I'm getting even with them, getting even with
Mm-hmm.
the humans that are doing that to them, the
Mm-hmm.
overconsumption of them. Um, yeah, they know, and yes, they have brains, yes, they have spirits, yes, they have souls. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just yeah. and,
Yeah.
and
And
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's just it's love. That's all it
it's
is.
all about love.
It's all
And
about love.
if we talk about which is funny because my spirit name is she who soars above the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had my spirit name done by Elder Jane, she said, "You're Gitbu." And Gitbu is a an eagle. So what was funny was that she who soars above the clouds, she who spreads love everywhere she goes. And then it's Gitbu and Gitbu and Gitbu. There's three different. There's a warrior spirit. I'm a Gitbu. There's an animal spirit. I'm a Gitbu. Everything was just plain and simple Gitbu. Eagle. I was the only one in that ceremony that just got that. Other people got like
Mm.
prancing buffalo woman. And I'm like, why don't I get something like that? Right.
I want something
So
hearty.
something. So when she was explaining this to me, and everybody's laughing, right? Because they're like, yeah, that figures, I don't see the eagle in me, but they all see the eagle. They're like, that's the highest form. You're the connection between this world and the next world and the spirit world. Cool. So she's like, I have a message for you from Creator or from, Spirit on the other side. She was like, when I was talking to Creator, Creator's like, oh, we know this one. We know her. We're quite
Mm-hmm.
familiar with her. And she was laughing because she's like, just tell her she farts love everywhere she goes.
Oh, there you
And
go.
what was so funny about that is that she said, I've never had a message like that before. And that's not a common thing for me to say to someone. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you fart love, like you fart this. I don't usually talk about farts. And it was a little embarrassing, but and when she said that, it was hilarious. And so when we talk about love, that was the one thing that people say when I walk into a room, you can just feel love come up from me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think animals are so attracted to me because that's what my mission is. And my job is here. And my
Mm-hmm.
purpose is to spread love. And I'm not perfect. And I do say words sometimes that are not the greatest,
Mm-hmm.
but my superpower is love. And
Mm-hmm.
the connection that we have is all about love. And that's it. The animals already have it. They're just trying to teach it to us. And they're trying to say, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? I'm here to teach you love. I'm here to teach you gratitude. So
Mm-hmm.
gratitude goes to the cows when we eat
Yes.
beef. It's the
Yes.
gratitude that they've given us. They've given their lives for us to consume them.
Mm-hmm.
We have to eat food. Like, so, and I was going to say, don't ever get me started on plants and trees
Yes. Yep.
because they have energy in them like nothing else
They
in
have
this world.
intelligence too.
Holy, holy.
Yeah.
There's trees that are a lot older than what we claim to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's when the trees talk to me, they're like, they think I'm 1,500 years old. I'm thousands, like tens of thousands of years old. But
Mm-hmm.
because in our minds, every one of those rings equals a year. They don't. They
Yes.
equal 200 years or 100
Yeah.
years. Like it's just
I was
amazing.
I'm just looking at the clock here. We got about
Yeah.
five minutes to go.
Mm.
Excuse me. I when I was living in London, Ontario, I was heading home on the bus, and I knew that they were going to widen the street
Mhm,
2 blocks away from where I was living,
mhm,
to from a 2 lane to a 4 lane. And in order to do that, they had to take out a whole row of pine trees that were, gosh, probably about 50 or 60 years old. They were quite tall and very solid pine trees. And they were like they had been clipped up so that nobody could,
mm,
they weren't like the branches weren't on the ground. They were clipped up above the roofs of these uh condos that were beside them.
mm,
And I saw a big red X on all of these trees. I started crying,
mhm,
and because all I could hear was them saying, "Please help us. Please help us." And I come up to these trees, I see these big red X, and I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I want to help you, but I can't. It's out of my hands. I am so," and I couldn't apologize enough to these
yeah.
trees. And
Just
I
give
said,
them a hug.
just, yeah, just please go. You've
Mhm,
done a great job. And, I thanked them and all that stuff. And I went home and I cried all night for those trees.
mm.
I'm so
And
sorry I can't help you.
you, here's what the trees tell me is that you did help them by acknowledging that their pain, um, and their feelings, right? Even though they're burnt down, or even if they're cut down maliciously or what have you, they want you to know that they're still providing for us. And that's what they're here for. They're the guardians of the humans.
Hmm.
So we have the animals that teach us the love. They teach us how to respect. They teach us the seven sacred teachings that we have. We also have the plants that are the guardians of us. So when we cut them down to build a home, that's their
Hmm.
protection. They're proud of that. That
Hmm.
they're being cut down to protect us, to keep us warm. They're our guardians. So
Hmm.
you just telling that to the trees, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. You did that. You did. You gave them that love that they needed in that moment in time. I hug trees. Thank you
Hmm.
very much for everything you do. If a tree is like when we had the wildfires last year here in Nova Scotia or 2 years ago, yeah, it was like 2023. We
Hmm.
had those fires. It was, it was painful and hard for the trees to deal with. But the way that they looked at that was that it was a replenishment for them too.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
also taught humans a lesson as
Hmm.
well. It displaced a lot of people. The lesson that it taught them was, gratitude again, being grateful, to
Hmm.
be more careful of things, and to like stop and slow down and to look at our family and our love around us. So even if they're being burnt down or cut down, their spirit is still alive. Their
Hmm.
roots run deep. And those
Hmm.
trees, you notice that you'll think, oh my gosh, I thought they just planted that tree last year. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden
Yes. And then it's,
that's how
yeah.
quick they grow. And
Yes.
we'll never know that. But
Yeah.
don't even get me started with plants, and that's my next course that I'm taking. This
Yes.
I'm taking an 8-month course. I already have my doctor of acupuncture, and traditional Chinese medicine. And I did my thesis on the combination between traditional Mi'kmaq medicine and the traditional Chinese medicine, and the similarities between them, the similarities between like the elements that they have and the teachings and so on. And my Elder Noel, he was instrumental in helping me with that in collaboration with the hospital in China. So I'm taking another course about Nova Scotian medicines, and I'm going to be going foraging in Nova Scotia, foraging for mushrooms.
Beautiful.
Not just that, just it's 8 months of learning the structures of the plants again. So I really
Hmm.
look forward to that. And then with the knowledge that I have about Mi'kmaq medicine and traditional, I'm bringing it
Mm,
back because it
good.
might, yeah. And I'm really excited about it
Hmm.
when we on, but it's about honoring them too, honoring the medicines, honoring the plants, because um, when I was very young, when I first, I knew always knew something was different about me, and my first time I noticed that my guide was I had a Native American guide, and my spirit, like being three spirited, four spirited, one of those
Hmm.
spirits would call me and snowflower. And I'd be like, what the hell is a snowflower? Because I've never seen them before. And it was like, this is a prophecy for your life because you're going to persevere through the weirdest, most horrific, most hazardous conditions that snowflower blooms. And
Hmm.
that is going to be where your life is going to take you. So I
Yes.
always appreciate the plants, and I was
Hmm.
walking from my house to my sister's house, which is about like she lives next door to me, so it's like a 1.5 minute walk away. Just walk across our driveways or whatever, and I saw literally a snowflower coming up, and it was like this
Hmm.
bright red, and I'm like, "Wow, would you look at
What?
that? What message do you
Nice.
have for me?" So
Hmm.
I guess what I kind of want to leave everybody with, because we talked a lot about animal love and plant love and so
Hmm.
on, is that the best way to pay the respects to the animal or the plant is to ask them what their medicine is. Ask the crow, what is your medicine? What is the medicine is whatever lesson that we have to learn, or what is the advice that you want to give? Because it's not always negative. It's not
Hmm.
always like a warning for you to stop. It could just be that they're bringing luck into you,
Hmm.
right? You don't know. And
Hmm.
so ask them when you feel like it, you'll see, you might just see one pigeon. Yeah, that's normal. But then you might see like three or four of them together. Okay, that's normal too. But
Hmm.
if you see that day after day for like a week, that's a
Hmm.
message. So
That's a
ask the
message.
pigeon what the message is.
Hmm.
And you'll know it because you'll get it in your brain. They'll might go, just go have fun. You might hear, let's go have fun, or I need a coffee right now, as silly as that sounds. And then that coffee could lead you to a conversation with somebody you haven't seen in a long time, or it
Hmm.
could lead you to
Yes.
go, oh, this is a memory for me having that coffee. So, what a gift that that animal just gave to you. So, just
Yeah.
ask them, what is the medicine that I need from this?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's
Ex-
don't feel guilty. And I probably am going to get a lot of flack for this from vegetarians and vegans and stuff, but eat what you need to eat and don't feel guilty because you're consuming something that we have to consume what's good for our bodies. And when I don't always eat meat, like I do a lot of vegetarian meals, but I also do, and my culture is about eating the animal, but
hmm.
honoring that animal before we eat it. So hopefully I don't get a
Hmm.
lot of controversy or backlash for saying that, but
No,
eat
you
what your
shouldn't.
body needs, right?
Yeah.
Eat what your body needs and honor whatever it is.
Hmm.
Put out if it makes you feel better. This is a practice that we practice. I practice it every day, all the
Hmm.
time. I just put out a spirit plate. What a spirit plate is whatever I'm eating. I put some on a paper plate, or if I don't have a paper plate,
Hmm.
a porcelain plate. Um,
Hmm.
and I just put it outside and I offer it to whomever. I just offer it. It's just an offering and say, I would like to share this with you. Thank you for everything that you've given to me. And I just laid it on top
Hmm.
of the snow. Just leave it.
My
walk away. I
my
don't care who eats it.
my
I don't
grandmother
care.
used to do that at
Well,
Christmas dinner.
yeah, we do
Christmas dinner,
spirit
she'd
plates.
she'd set another plate, another a spot for whoever wants to come in.
Yep, and that's absolutely beautiful. And
Mm,
I do that a lot. And if I forget, my son will do it. He'll say,
yes.
"Mommy," and we found that I do it, and I have a blue plate that I use a lot.
Hmm.
My mom was said to me, "Did you know that there was a chip in your plate?" And I'm like, I know there's a chip in my plate because I put out the meatloaf and the snow on my back. Or my back
Hmm.
deck was really, and I could hear rustling around. And I'm like, I'm not even
Hmm.
going to bother. I'm just going to let it have it. And when I went to get it, they were struggling with the plate, and it was a freaking raccoon that was hungry. But when
Hmm.
he looked at me, he had the plate in his mouth, and he dropped it, and he broke.
No, little stinker. He's
I
probably like,
know.
"Oh, I'm so busted. I'm so
Yeah,
busted."
but I
Anyway,
didn't say
this
mean things.
this has been amazing. I don't know if we missed anything. It's just
We could
all
go
about
on
animal.
forever
We
about
we
that because,
we could,
you know,
absolutely we could. And different kinds of pets too. My
yeah,
daughter
and
had a
not just,
hedgehog.
yeah, and not like I'm a friend of mine has three budgie birds.
Yeah.
There's
And
certain
people have
animals that
snakes and
are more
spiders
attracted to
and
you. Yep,
yeah.
snakes and spiders. Friend had a pet fly. No joke. She had
I've
this fly
heard
for a couple months.
there's a
Um,
guy in London had he had his girls, they were his bees.
mhm.
Yeah, he had, and so he noticed that these bees were coming up to him, and he would call
Mm,
them then his girls, and so he started feeding them honey, and then I have something flying around in here. Speaking of something,
I know.
um, and so he just started opening up beehives,
Yep.
all because
But
he
that
had
was his
somebody
purpose.
come up and he called them, hey girls, how
Yep.
you doing, and feeding them, and
Hmm.
so the videos that he was putting out there, he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go visit my girls and my ladies," and talking
Hmm.
like sometimes he talked like a pimp.
Beautiful.
Gonna go visit my
Absolutely
ladies.
beautiful.
Anyway,
Absolutely
this has been
beautiful.
absolutely amazing. I love these conversations. As usual, I
Mhm.
love these conversations. So,
I love
uh,
them, and we could go on about the spirituality of the animals in the ocean, and I could talk about specific
yes,
animals,
yes, yes,
because
we will
the
we will
ocean
do
is,
that.
oh, it's so beautiful, and my life as a
It's
mermaid, because
un
I've
unchar
lived a few lives as a mermaid.
Okay. Uncharted
Yeah.
territories. Let's
Hmm.
delve into that at some point.
Hmm.
And anyway, let's pick this up next week
Sure.
and with another amazing topic. So I
Yes.
will talk to you later. And
Yeah.
and by the way, little reminder, please like, please share, please subscribe. Do all that fun stuff. It's free, but it helps us out amazing, immensely. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
If you have any questions, certainly leave it in the comments. Ask questions. We check them.
We check them.
We appreciate the feedback. Whether it's, if you have something that's negative and you're like you're wrong on it, that's cool. Leave that anyway,
Yes,
because
we
I
need
always
that.
like to be able to engage as well. So,
Yes.
but
All
I
right.
like the positive better.
We do. Bye now.
Bye.